God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And now, as we always do, I'm going to ask you to join me in a moment of silence. I'd like you to think about how lucky we are to be in the great state of Florida, in the great county of Flagler. And think about our first responders and our men and women in uniform, serving overseas and here at home. Please, just a short moment. Thank you. Well, welcome everybody. 1, 2, 3. All three of you. So the first step today is a presentation of the annual report. And Jorge, are you going to do that? No?
I was planning on doing it.
You're going to do that?
Yes.
Okay. First of all, my compliments for this book.
Oh, thank you.
It's very nice.
Thank you.
Very nice.
Before we start, I just wanted to bring up one item that is not on the agenda for the workshop, but because this will probably be our last opportunity to be together in the public prior to going up to Tallahassee, I asked Holly to give an overview of the legislative schedule for next week. So at some point, if you'd like to add that to the agenda for discussion, it should be real brief, but I don't know if you want to do that before or after the rules, procedures discussion.
Yeah, let's do it after the annual report.
Okay,
Okay, we'll do it then.
sounds good. Thank you. So you should have all received a copy of the Flagler County 2022 annual report. I'm pleased to present this report. It contains some remarkable achievements of our organization, the best of who we are, the best of what we accomplished this past year. Flagler County is more than what you see in these pages. It's really the people, who greet our residents and customer service counters. It's the folks that are providing life-saving care during times of need, those who help with resources, education, creative programs like at our library, those who maintain and manage our public assets in top working order, to ensure access to safe and reliable public transportation, protect and preserve our environmental resources, as well as taking care of our parks and beaches. It's the people who tackle real everyday problems and find better solutions. It's all of us together who create a vibrant, prosperous community with a focus on exceptional quality of life. So with that, I'll get started. We all do better together, and our strong relationships with our municipal partners and state agencies has led to more teamwork and collaboration than ever before. With a focus on community, we've brought forward a unified voice for Flagler's legislative program. We've held some purposeful summits on long-range planning and capital projects, as well as economic development, resiliency, and the future of our community. You'll see a little different in the presentation. I wasn't going to go page by page in the book, so I may have skipped over the first few pages, which is really just identifying who you all are, our organizational chart, some of those things. So just to speed it along, I've kind of eliminated those pages in the program. Together, we're focused on our roadways, our stormwater, our vulnerability, dune and beach renourishment, conservation lands, public safety, and expansion of behavioral health services in Flagler County. It is a collective effort that moves our community forward, advancing a shared vision for Flagler County. Flagler County is an organization of dedicated professionals, employees who are kind-hearted and always willing to offer a helping hand. These are just a few of the many ways our employees give back to our community. Through our strategic planning process, we've developed a structure to support our core values by putting Flagler first through fiscal accountability, innovative solutions, responsible growth, superior service, and transparent government, which helps us make a difference in our community. As an organization, we're living our core practices through the delivery of the wow factor in superior service, connecting with citizens, demonstrating high standards of public service, accepting accountability, exhibiting respect, employing the team approach, exercising responsible stewardship of the community's resources, and living our culture of putting Flagler first, making a difference. Providing positive customer experience to individuals who interact with government agencies is critical to improving transactions across all levels of government. We strive for superior service, but it's more than just the one-on-one individual transaction. It's about creating and improving the overall customer experience that people have with our organization. This is a list of some of the comments that we've received over the last year. We weren't able to touch on every department just because we didn't have enough room, but we wanted to highlight some of those areas. It's important to provide a structure and a means for our employees to flourish and feel valued. Employees are the backbone of any organization, and Flagler County has some very dedicated professionals. We wanted to highlight some of the many professional accomplishments of this dedicated staff that we have. I wasn't going to read them all, but it's quite impressive. As we continue to grow as a county and under new leadership, 2022 served as an opportunity for us to revise and update our strategic plan. With a clearly defined county vision, mission, and organizational values, we've developed the ongoing framework for performance excellence with a focus on effective government, economic vitality, public health and safety, and growth and infrastructure. We've worked well with our legislative delegation to advocate for Flagler County's interest. In 2022, we were successful in securing funding for the construction of Commerce Parkway, as well as funding for the backbone of municipal sewer service on the Barrier Island. And you'll see throughout the book, there's a few pages where you'll see the Did You Know? We try to add some little highlights of information that the public might not be aware of. On this particular one, it's that over the last 2 years, we have received over $15 million in legislative appropriations. And although our collective legislative priority book that we put together for our community is much larger, this is a list of Flagler County specific requests that were submitted with a focus on public health and safety, behavioral health, community resiliency, and conservation lands. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail on this because I'll have Holly give us an update when I'm done. But working with a focus on transparency and communication to the public, we wanted to look for different ways to help tell our story. This page in the book compares your dollar and how it's being spent on a monthly basis. And by comparing high-quality county services with monthly subscription service for streaming. So if you look at this monthly, most residents probably pay more for entertainment than they do on county services. So when you break down their tax bill to the monthly rate, gives that comparison here. As a supporter of continuous quality improvement, we're providing accountability for our actions, being a government driven by good management, not crisis, driven by input from all levels of staff and stakeholders. We're creating an environment in which the leadership, management, and employees strive to create constantly improving quality in the delivery of our services to the community. And with an eye on our future, Flagler County continues to make intentional, proactive, strategic steps to strengthen our financial position while increasing transparency, innovation, and operational efficiencies. This gives you the breakdown of the property tax distribution and where that is being spent. This is something that we use in our budget presentation, but this is a copy of our budget in brief for fiscal year 2022-2023. This provides a summary of our budget in full detail. And then this is a continuation of that budget in brief and how those funds are being utilized.
Heidi, real quick, the
Sure.
difference between total FTE and then those that are funded in the general fund?
You have your general fund or your ad valorem, and then you've got your enterprise fund, so like your
Oh, that's
folks
where
at
they
the
are.
airport, building
Yeah.
department.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yep. And then here's a breakdown by the numbers of some of the high-quality services with optimized resources being provided by Flagler County. And I have to say, when we started this process and we were looking at the information over the last year, I think a lot of times we get caught up in the day-to-day, and sometimes you feel like you're spinning circles or not making headway. And then when you actually compile all of the accomplishments that we've had throughout the year, it's quite impressive. Obviously, we can't put it all on one slide, but this works towards our initiative of transparency and exercising responsible stewardship and accountability of the community's resources. It's just another way to show the breakdown of where the money comes from and how it is being utilized.
We never can capture it because we really don't know what the number is, but there should be something big on there that says grants. Did I miss it? Is it on there and I don't see it, or?
It depends on where the grant's coming from on here. It could be, and I don't know how this was broken out, this particular slide. It could be, I don't know if it's captured in that intergovernmental revenue or if it's in the miscellaneous. That would be a question for the finance team, but I'm sure it's captured in there. It might not be specific where it says grants, but
I think it's a big enough number that, I mean, I'd like to be able to use that number because it's money that we get that's not ad valorem, which I think is significant. So that's okay. I'll catch up on that.
And then as we start going over the many departments of Flagler County, you'll see a common theme, which will provide for the department highlights. It's an opportunity to share some of the numbers as a way of quantifying their workload, but understanding, of course, that this is not an all-inclusive list of everything that they did for the year, but really, again, just the highlights. There will be project updates, a focus on collaboration and partnerships, as well as community education and outreach. So the first one up is county administration. Coming in as the newly appointed county administrator, 2022 is a time for change, a time for focus, a time to take stock in Flagler County's future. The year started with finding better ways to tell our story with a focus on public transparency, communication, and engagement. I'm a firm believer, no matter how good you are, you can always do better. I think that continuous quality improvement is the best way to ensure that what we're doing is the most efficient, effective, and productive way every single day of the week on every single piece that we're working on. We need to make sure that we're engaging our residents to better understand our issues and their impacts, and for them to see that our challenges are their challenges too. I believe that we need to do a better job in telling our story through transparency and the creation of a robust communications plan. I say that not because I don't think that our communications team isn't doing a good job, but again, I just think that you can always do better, and I think that we need to find new ways to engage with the community instead of applying the same approach. So we'll go through a few of these. This was county administration. These are some of the items that I touched on here. Next up would be our county attorney's office and some of their department highlights and the things that they've worked on over the last year. And again, this isn't an all-inclusive list. We've got our communications group and the many opportunities that they had throughout the year to help tell our story. We created the Coast to Country magazine. We were able to establish some monthly updates, worked on the strategic plan. We also did a quarterly newsletter. We're looking to change that this year coming up to being a monthly newsletter. We've had radio shows, social media posts. They've got a lot going on for a very small department. This is our growth management. When you look at the permit applications and the permits issued over the last year, you've got just under 3,600 applications received and just over 3,500 permits issued. When you look at the building inspections, they've been on over 21,000 building inspections for the year. And then your code enforcement, we've got 72 code cases for this past year, resulting in 498 lien searches. We're going to talk a little bit more about code enforcement and our process at a future workshop where we're going to look at some of our codes that need to be updated. You've got to look at your emergency management and their response over the past year. We've had 2 hurricanes that actually straddled the 2 fiscal years. Again, we wanted to provide an opportunity on there for the public, if they didn't know, that they can sign up through the alert Flagler to receive notifications of any public safety or weather alerts. Very proactive in their outreach to our community through social media, events, and radio shows. A prepared community is a resilient community, and this is just a compilation of different things that they had working on over the last year, including one that's not really directly related to emergency management, but I thank Jonathan for taking on the liaison position with the mosquito control. It's definitely helped. This is a look at our engineering department and a lot of the projects that they had going on over the past year. And it was really amazing to see the list all put together of everything that they had going on. But what I think was more impressive was when you look at the dollar amount in these slides, when you see over 23 million in roadway construction projects, and you see another almost 17 million, 16 million of ongoing or upcoming projects. You've got the ongoing dune projects at 32 million, and that number continues to climb, as well as some additional upcoming opportunities there. And then you've got your ongoing and upcoming roadway design projects at just under $1 million.
There's an example of grant money that doesn't show up.
It does on the other slide, it's just we need to figure out where it is.
There it is.
Yeah,
Okay.
so it's definitely accounted for. Here's a look at our Flagler Executive Airport and the numbers that they've had over the last year. It's a busy general aviation airport. When you look at their occupancy, they're pretty much at 100%. They're 100% for their hangars. Commercial space, they're at 98%. When you look at their total number of operations at just over 144,000, you look at the amount of fuel that they've sold. These are some of their project highlights. When you look at, these are big ticket items. When you look at contributions from FAA and FDOT, this is a continuation of the airport with some of their notable events that they had this past year. Our airport director, he was the president of the Florida Airport Council. He was met with the Governor DeSantis and Jared Perdue, the Secretary of Department of Transportation, at their annual meeting. And then the lower right was the picture of the staging of equipment following Hurricane Ian. You've got your extension services through University of Florida, IFAS. These are some of their highlights and some of the activities that they had over the last year. This is a continuation of extension services, the various programs that they had going on. This is our financial services department, which is the Office of Management and Budget, along with procurement and contracts. You'll start to see some of these, other than highlights, you'll see strategic initiatives that are woven into the department, or more transparency when it comes to managing the community's resources. This brings up Flagler County Fire Rescue and the department highlights that they have there, as well as a look at their numbers for the year. When you look at the number of calls that they've responded to, the breakdown of the flight ops, number of building inspections, breaks it out for the partnership and collaboration, who we've worked with, what we've been able to do over the last year, and then opportunities for community outreach and public education. This is a look at general services and some of their project highlights, what they've been working on over the last year. Got a couple things come to mind. The sheriff's operation building was a huge project that they oversaw over the last year. They're currently working on some design for the West Side Fire Station, as well as the Bunnell Branch Library HHS building. That top picture, we haven't set it for an official ribbon cutting or opening day ceremony, but that top picture is the expansion at Carver. The bottom is the renovated dog park at Wadsworth. This is a continuation of general services. The bottom picture is that new amphibious piece of equipment that we purchased last year for Public Works, so that they can go in there and clean ditches, some of those hard reach areas that we had previously. This is a continuation of general services with their community outreach. As you recall, we assisted the sheriff with the recovery effort of human remains last year, as well as preparing for hurricanes. And then here's their look at their by the numbers. These are all different activities that we had. Although you might not be aware, we actually had 87 special events through Parks and Recreation. That's where these pictures came from, different activities such as surfing competition. We partner with the school board to host several of their cross-country events throughout the year. Mountain biking in Malacompra, Graham Swamp, Cracker Day. We just had the Native American Festival. Also had the annual horseshoe competition, state of Florida. These are the champions for that. That brings up veteran services and the contributions that they make to our community. When you look at the number of customers that they've helped over the last year that reside in Flagler, helping connect veterans or their spouses with benefit and compensation. This is human resources. When you talk about training and outreach to our staff, managing the benefits and well-being. That's a picture of last year's Leadership Academy graduates. And then we have the Health and Human Services Department and their focus on the adult daycare, senior services, housing services, or human services. Again, some very impressive numbers. And then a look at the Innovation Technology Department and what they've been able to do over the last year. They're really good at completing their tasks within an hour or less. They've got almost a 79% completion rate on being able to address those within the hour. Also focuses on the partnership and collaboration that we have with the City of Flagler Beach and the Sheriff's Office, as well as all of the constitutional officers. This is a look at land management, the work that they've been able to do. Another one focused on that partnership and collaboration, not just with county agencies, but as well as state agencies and volunteers that come in and help remove invasive plants. And that's just a little note on there about the Environmentally Sensitive Land, or ESL program. It's been around for 35 years, and it has provided an opportunity to acquire just over 6,400 acres within that program. Next up is the public library, providing opportunities to educate, engage, and innovate with the public. They had a lot of programs and activities going on over the last year, including the Pause reading program. And then we had the author of Elf on a Shelf, who happens to live in our community. We provide opportunities to the teens as well as engaging with the seniors. They've got a lot going on there. And then our Tourism Development Department, promoting and marketing Flagler County as a destination. When you look at their highlights in '21, they had over $824 million in economic impact and over 1 million visitors. We saw an increase of 23% this last year. We've also partnered with Palm Coast and providing some funding to them for their Southern Recreation Facility. They continue to help the campaign for Dodging the Dunes as a means of educating the public. And then these are the highlights for our Economic Development Department. I think some of this you may have seen if you attended the chamber. When you look at your top 5 industry sectors, tourism being actually the largest in Flagler County, followed by retail, healthcare and social assistance, then administrative waste services, and then construction. Top 5 employers in order: Advent Health, Yellowstone, Publix, the Reunion Club, and Boston Whaler. A lot of opportunity to tap into some additional businesses that are more inclined for like light industrial. This here is an opportunity to show how we're living our culture of putting Flagler first, making a difference. Just to highlight some of the stuff that the employees have done over the last year, from going above and beyond to receiving awards. And then employing the team approach, because I truly believe that we are stronger together, and that by working together, we can produce bigger and better ideas. And that concludes the presentation portion. I know that the books have more information in them, but just wanted to provide a quick overview of that. I don't know if you all have any questions for me.
Finished with that award-winning photograph from Mike there.
I did.
Very well done.
Thank you.
Yeah, this is a good document.
It's small
Keep it by
enough.
my bedside.
Yeah, it's small enough that you can, carry it around with you.
Yeah,
We've
really
printed a
good.
few, so we can share those in some of our county offices and share them with our community partners, cities, and stuff like that. So,
Yeah, it's really well done.
thank you.
Compliments. Okay, so now Holly. Holly, you're up.
All right, good afternoon. Holly Albanese, Chief of Special Projects, Library Director, but I'm here wearing my legislative hat right now. And we're just going to briefly go over what's going to happen next week, because as you know, on March 15th is Legislative Day, and we're all heading to Tallahassee for that. So day one, Tuesday, March 14th, we'll all arrive around 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and at 5:30 is the Small County Coalition legislative briefing, and that will be held in City Hall, which is in the Kleeman Plaza adjacent to the Harry's Restaurant. We'll all do that. Day two, which is Legislative Day itself, it's at the Turnbull Conference Center at FSU, and basically from 7 to 8, we'll registration and breakfast. 8 to 10 is the briefing. 10:30 to 5, it's lunch, and then, of course, we're going to be meeting with our local legislators. I have contacted our lobbyists to set up appointments for us to meet with both Speaker Renner and Senator Hudson. I don't have times as of yet. Our lobbyists said that they like to set those appointments 1 week out, so I should be getting that any day. But keep in mind, I will be sending each of you an actual agenda. So at the legislative briefing, these are some of the people you will be hearing from. The Kathleen Pasadomo, the Florida Senate President, Chuck Clemens, the Florida House of Representatives Speaker Pro Temp, Wilton Simpson, Commissioner, Department of Ag, Jared Perdue, Department of Transportation Secretary, Christopher Kimball, Director, Department of Health, Office of Medical Marijuana Use, and Sean Hamilton, Secretary, Florida Department of Environmental Protection. Of course, we've had some interaction with him quite a bit lately. Okay, so just to remind you of what we're going up there to talk about, these were the policy priorities that we had discussed and we had all agreed to during the legislative program. This is part of that unified agenda. So these were all agreed upon by all the local municipalities as well as the county. So we want them to support the appropriation for the Public Library Construction Grant Program, protect and increase funding for the State of Florida Transportation Disadvantage Program, support affordable housing programs, and protect the housing trust funds. Support affordable and reliable high-speed internet. Support an amendment to Florida Statute 934.50 to extend the deadline for discontinuing non-approved drones. Support and dedicate state resources for the development of and enhancement of local government cybersecurity. Continue financial support of Scrap and Scott. We're looking at a reduction in that this year, so we really want to push that one. Support community resiliency grant programs for wastewater, flood, sea level rise. Those grant programs are important, and we're talking about, in this case, grant programs for the public. So as you know, we received money this past year for a change from septic to sewer, and in receiving that money, we're putting in the backbone. But in the future, residents may have to put in or may want to put in their own connection to the sewer, in which case these grant programs are really important to them. Support funding intended for any legislative appropriation projects for land acquisition, maintain short-term vacation rental legislation status quo, and it seems to arise every year, and it is again this year. So we want to make sure that we mention that when we go to Tallahassee. Continue to advocate for home rule authority.
Do we want to address that there's two Senate bills that are attacking home rule?
Yes, there is,
Do we wanna
714 and 833.
Yeah, and 170, Senate Bill 170.
Okay.
So do we want to specifically mention that when we're, 'cause they're both bad.
Yes.
They're bad.
As part of the agenda that I'm going to provide you, I'm going to give you a list of things that we want to discuss with our delegation, Speaker Renner and Senator Hudson. And those will be among them, along with there's several that Jonathan Lord, Emergency Management Director, he provided a list of stuff that he'd like us to pursue while we're there.
Okay.
Okay? And I will provide that to all of you ahead of time. Continue to advocate home rule authority. That's important. That has to do with the, obviously, vacation rental, but that local ordinance that happened, it failed last year, but it's on there again this year.
Is Senator Hudson pushing that again?
I don't know if it was Senator Hudson, but it is on there again.
Okay.
It's something to mention. Provide timely reimbursement from the state of Florida for FEMA obligated projects. So those are the policy projects, and I'm hoping you all remember you have this to refer to that we had handed out back in October. So now the funding priorities. These were 3 of the 5 that we had put forward to Speaker Renner and Senator Hudson. Of the 5, these are 3 that made it as funding project requests. And they're no longer calling them bill numbers. Speaker Renner decided to refer to them as form numbers. So they will each get a form number from the House and from the Senate. We have all the House form numbers. We have 2 out of the 3 Senate form numbers. I'm still waiting for the 3rd one, which has to do with the acquisition of the conservation lands. I'm waiting for that Senate form number. But all the House form numbers we already have. So those are the 3 that have moved forward. So just as a reminder, what we're looking to do with the fire station is combine fire administration and fire station in Bunnell. It's, I think it's 62. Yes, 62. And we want to rebuild. And we're asking for $10 million to do that.
And we haven't identified the actual piece of land we're going to buy yet, have we? We don't know where.
No, I don't think.
We don't know where we're going to put this yet.
We've identified a few parcels, but we have not moved forward with
Right,
acquiring
until we get the
them.
money, obviously, yeah. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so that's what we're asking, to provide that $10 million in funding so we can relocate, construct, and combine the fire station. And the hope is that this will ensure an effective emergency medical service response facility. So the next one is to expand behavioral health services in Flagler County by constructing an integrated stabilization unit and a men's residential treatment facility with SMA. That's the public-private partnership. And we're looking for about $10 million for that as well. We want to build 10,000 square feet, and it would be directly across from the Vince Carter, which is the women's residential treatment facility. So the requested action, oh, ignore that, I apologize. That should say 10 million, not 6 million. That was what we were originally thinking, but obviously with inflation and all the increased costs in construction, we had to increase that number.
I also think on the SMA side, they've identified recurring funding for them to support that as well.
SMA is obviously going to be providing all the funding for operations. So, yes. The 3rd one was to support acquisition of conservation lands, and the requested funding is $3 million. It won't necessarily, we identified 5 properties with a support of the land manager, Mike Lagacy. He had done a lot of this work and identified 5 parcels for us, so these may not be exactly purchase of land, it could be easements, purchase of easements. So again, we want the $3 million so that we can acquire the tracts or purchase easements to be able to protect future and anything that's on the Florida Forever list. I think there was at least one that was on the Florida Forever list, and some in the wildlife corridor. So these are important projects. So I wanted to give you, because you don't have your rack cards yet, this is what they're going to look like when they do come in tomorrow. So you see the front and back of them, and the actual titles of our funding requests. So it's called Combined Fire Administration and Fire Station. Those are the House form number, Senate form number, and then the Integrated Stabilization Unit, House number, and form, Senate form number, and then the acquisition of conservation lands along with the House form number. As I said, I still don't have the Senate form number at this time, but that's basically what your rack card is going to look like. And I just wanted to let you know what I've noticed, because it was sent out to us that we could search the funding projects, and these were the ones that I found for the City of Palm Coast projects, and then City of Flagler Beach and City of Benalla. I just wanted to let you know that some of their projects also did move forward.
Didn't, the mayor said they were going to try to get money for that bridge to go over they didn't get that?
They didn't get it.
They didn't get that, huh? Okay.
For, you no, I think that's embedded in the FDOT budget. It's not
Not on this?
It's not going to be an itemized project like this.
I thought it was in the book, I
Yeah.
thought it was the ask.
We have it in here. It was one of their asks. I'm not sure about whether it's going to be embedded. It's kind of like our ask for the beach and dune renourishment. What I was told is there will be money available through other programs versus putting it through as a funding request. They felt that that amount of money was too large an ask. It was too much for any member to be able to put forward as a funding project.
Speaker Renner called me and told me that.
Yes. So I got told that by
Too
our,
much money.
I got told that by our lobbyist, who was probably told that by Speaker Renner's office. So yes, and as far as the transportation access to the west for the City of Palm Coast, I think that's the one you're referring to. It may be funded as a project through FDOT. I don't know, but these were the ones that I did find as projects currently listed under the, you can go online and look at the House or Senate side, and you can actually search the projects to see whose projects have moved forward. And that's it. So do you have any questions of me?
No, good presentation, Holly, thanks.
You'll have the rec card sometime this week.
They're supposed to be in tomorrow. So as soon as they hit the door, I will put them in your boxes. So, yes. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are you up, Heidi?
Next up is the rules of procedure. We just wanted to open up and have a discussion. I know that this topic had come up sometime last year. We wanted to wait until we had our new commissioner on board to open up and have that conversation. You should have been provided with the last time that the procedures had been updated, which was, I believe, March of 2016. We provided that to you, as well as an internal working copy of some maybe redlined changes that we've made based on board direction and/or just really cleaning up the process a little bit, aligning to the way we currently use our agenda and how that's structured. I know that the county attorney's office had also gone in there and helped us clean it up a little bit. So I don't know if you want to just open it up for discussion, if you all have something that you wanted to bring up. We were collectively going to take the input from today and then bring it back to you at a follow-up meeting for adoption.
Well, it wasn't clear to me, is the stuff that's in red, is that already typed in? I mean, that's included as part of it? It's just changes?
Those are just edits. It's not fully adopted. We haven't brought it back to you for adoption. It's just a working document that we have at this point, where we took what was adopted formally in 2016 and you'll see that redlined or revised version. It hasn't come back to you for formal adoption, so before we do that, we wanted to make sure that we collected everybody's changes so that we can bring it back to you. Yeah. It was a matter of just like cleaning up the document because it was like some formatting issues. The differences you'll see, like in the beginning, it was a lot of formatting. And then when you get to the portion that talks about the agenda, that's redlined, you'll see text added. And that's really just to address the issues or concerns that the board has had. Like, for instance, the one is adding the moment of silence after the Pledge of Allegiance. That's something.
That was my question. The way it was formatted, it looked formatted and also deleted. I wasn't sure if we were removing the moment of silence or adding it in.
Adding it. On the original one, it only had the pledge, and I think there was a conversation among the board to add the moment of silence. So it was added, but not formally adopted. And that's why that red line version is our working document of the changes that the board has requested, as well as format changes, if that makes sense.
So red's changes and blue's edits from Al's side.
Correct.
Suggested changes.
Suggested.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we're going to change when we have public comment. I'm not sure I like the way that's worded. We deleted what we always normally read, and we added unless an individual has written documentation, they are representing a group. We're going to say that every time?
I'm not sure I'm following you. What page are you on, or what?
It's not a page, they don't have a page number. Page 9.
If it's written in red, that is language that we've added, and it's the way you currently do it, but not formally adopted. So I don't know if I'm,
Well, you deleted the way we
It's
normally
not,
do it. It's under the deleted column, where it's what we read now, a 30-minute time, 3-minute time speakers, and you've changed it to read a 30-minute time period provided for public comment on any consent agenda item or topic not of the agenda. There's a 3-minute time limit for all speakers, and here's where it's new, unless an individual has written documentation that they are representing a group. So that's why we're going to read it now. Yes,
But it's different from what you say.
it's quite a bit different, yeah.
Mr. Chairman, I just had one comment on that same point. The 30 minutes, I don't think we've been, a lot of times we don't need 30 minutes.
Right.
But that 30-minute means we could stop the public presentations at the 30-minute point.
And move them to the next one, that, you know, in the.
But we can do that.
Yeah.
And I don't know we've done that, but we may have done it, but I don't remember when we have a big group in, if we've stopped it at 30 minutes. Or the first period of talking. A lot of times it's a specific topic when you have a lot of people coming in, and then they talk on that topic. Anyway.
Anyway, that whole thing, I didn't understand where we're headed, like paragraph 6, paragraph 7, and 8. I'm not sure what we're trying to accomplish there.
those are just identifying the elements of the meeting. That tracks exactly the way your present agenda reads in those groupings.
So, oh, I see, so paragraph 6 is the minutes and all that, and then 7 is the actual
Correct.
consent. Okay, I got it now, I got it.
Now, on
I'm
the
still concerned
earlier-
about that,
your
the
comment-
community outreach.
The, while the red part I didn't author, I think what they were doing there is taking the fact that we do recognize that when somebody is speaking for a group, in order to economize on the benefit of a group representative, we would give them a couple more minutes to speak other than the standard 3. You do that in the quasi-judicial context, so what they did here was to say, okay, you'll afford that same. But this is all obviously dependent upon how you want to run your meetings.
Well, I could see where if the audience is completely filled with people and they're all wearing green shirts, that we could ask, does any single person want to come up and speak for the group? I guess. Otherwise,
Well, then they
we'll
might
line
take,
up 30
they
of
might
them.
take 30 minutes figuring out that person. Usually, if this is going to come into play, that group has already figured out that they've got a spokesperson. You don't want to ask them on the spot because then they'll have to kibitz to figure out who that is or, I mean, you can always ask.
Your past history shows that they've thought about that in advance, and they understand that repetitive comments don't do them any benefit, so they come and pull the resources and have a spokesman. We've seen that in a few instances.
Sometimes that works, yeah. Other times, we'll have 10 people come up and say the same thing.
And I can remember a couple of times when we tried this, and it was a no, and they just started lining up anyway. So it can work different ways. The question is there some general, I think what we're trying to do here is give a general statement that covers all possibilities, make it general enough, and then go from there. In my memory as chairman and all that, I remember a few times, but those were different kind of subjects.
Now, you could always, here, let me give you an option here. If the specificity is a problem, it's easy enough to say what we always have said, and then includes, as we've done in the quasi-judicial part, or as otherwise determined by the commission, so that you could always have the discretion to do something different than what is explicitly written. We did that in the quasi-judicial part. You haven't reached that, but you'll notice a few sentence additions and phrase additions there that reserve discretion to the board. The reason we did that there was because in a number of land use matters, we've had people complain to us by email and I guess verbally that we were not strictly following the words of our rules of procedure. So in other words, sometimes somebody got more than 10 minutes or somebody was given more than 3 minutes, but I wasn't given more than 3 minutes. So, there is that issue that occasionally comes up.
I'm trying to visualize how this would take place. So the gentleman comes up and he says he's speaking for the group, and then I have to ask him, please present your written authority that you have to speak. That's what this says. And so then he would have to come up and give me a document that says he's speaking for the group. And we say, okay, he is. He's got a written thing. Okay, fine, go ahead, you have 5 minutes. I think that'll be hard.
I mean,
think
just,
that'll be hard to do.
I mean, since we're having a discussion, other places force people who are going to speak to put a card in ahead
They
of time.
sign in here, you have to sign in. You do
Yeah,
have to-
you sign in, but you don't do a card on the topic, I don't think. You'd have to make that would have to be made known to the public. You can't just, the first time a guy comes up like that and you say, where's your written documentation? He says,
Yeah,
why do you tell me that,
let's work on that.
Well, you don't have to have it, however you want it.
Maybe it could be more vague as to a chairman's discretion or chair's discretion. Like we had the gentleman that came up to you prior to and asked for 5 minutes because he represented Hammock-Dune. Or if you had brought representation like an attorney because you're an abutting landowner who's impacted by it. So maybe it could be more vague as to say at chair discretion, a 5 minute may be allotted or, I don't know.
Which we've done.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. What do you guys, girls, think about that? I don't like the written documentation issue on it. I think that's clumsy. That would be clumsy. How are we going to? And who has to sign it? Who's going to authorize someone to speak? So what do y'all think? I personally don't like that one.
I mean, a hand showing of hands that they've got a group that they're representing, so we know who's not, who's not coming up to the podium again.
Right.
The form is a bit much
I
unless
think
they,
that's a bit much. Yeah, he's going to give me a form that says and he's going to sign it himself.
I
you
think
know?
a little of this, just like you're saying, is the way it's working at that particular meeting.
Yeah.
If you make things too cut and dried here, I think you'll get a lot of complaints. I don't know. I don't know. It's a tough one. Because, Andy, for instance, if they're representing 200 people and there are 10 people here, well, maybe those 10 people don't necessarily represent the group as a whole. So I think there are too many possibilities that could lead to. So I agree with you, Mr. Chairman. I agree that it'd be hard to lock that in in writing ahead of
I
time.
like the concept, though. I mean, it saves us
I
time.
do too.
I do like the concept,
Maybe-
but I don't like the written thing, that we have to have written
Couldn't they
authority.
just have by like a show of hands, we defer time to the speaker?
Yeah, we always
Or
have the
something like
people
that.
that say, "Give him my 3 minutes,"
Yeah, the deferred
No, that
time.
doesn't work. That doesn't work. So, if y'all don't mind, I'm going to ask that documentation piece be stricken. Throw that out of there. Okay, we beat that to death.
But we have time to come up with better language.
Better language.
Yeah,
yes.
I think the language is crucial there. Emerald.
So I have a question on
You could
page,
say unless an individual is designated by a group to speak, that would work. But then he gets the extra 2 minutes. Can we do that? Okay. I'm sorry, Leanne.
no, I'm
Go
okay.
ahead.
I thought they were, no, if we're moving, I don't know if we're moving on from
Are we
that.
moving on from that? We
or
okay
we
with that?
Move on from that.
Okay, we're moving on.
I had a question regarding page 24, where we're going to, I guess we're deleting, and this is more historical for me, so I can understand. We're deleting the Economic Opportunity Advisory Council and the Airport Advisory Board. So before we do that, those boards no longer exist, and we have no consensus to do any type of replacement for Economic Advisory Councils or any type of replacement for airport advisories? Is that how we feel about that?
Well, we could reconstitute the airport. I don't know if Roy would want to do that because they got out of hand. That's how we had to get rid of them.
I'm having a lot of, not just complaints via email, but now out in the west, well, we haven't determined if those airplanes are coming from his airport or not from the schools. We're now getting complaints of the Spectrum internet being cut out, and Spectrum is blaming it on the planes in the area. We've had a lot of schools now flying in over the farms because it's fun to do. And now we have a senior technician at Spectrum working on it to determine if that's what's causing it. They blamed it on it. Then we have, obviously, the continuation of complaints from that area. But as they expand the hangars and the runways and everything else, is that not something we might want to entertain, for discussion, since the city of Palm Coast continues to add housing around the airport? It seems to me we may not want to throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Well, it's probably a good discussion to have with Roy. I'm not sure.
Be Roy's to have?
Well, I think that you kind of hit the nail on the head when you said before they kind of lost control of focus. They're an
yeah, they lost
advisory and
focus.
not a operational element. The issue that you have out west is that the planes that are flying are outside of our airspace. We don't control that. It's up to the FAA. So having an advisory council, I don't see where that's going to benefit. I think if we have specific issues, we need to workshop and talk through them and meet with the public, but I don't know.
Well, why don't we use an example, the noise issue that you and Roy are handling fairly well, as far as, because I read all those. So if we had an airport advisory board, I don't know that they could do any better than what you're doing and with you and Roy are doing with that issue.
There is one vocal person in the
Yeah.
community that, and I understand that it is an issue. It's not that I think that it's not an issue, but when you look at housing proximity to an airport, it definitely presents a challenge. And, maybe it wasn't well thought out or well planned, but the airport, as you know, has been there for a very long time. And we are working to resolve those issues. There's not a lot that you can do because you receive federal funding, that you can't restrict, certain activity. It is,
Yeah, well, my point is, I don't know that an airport advisory board would do any better
Well, then I
than what
think-
you're doing with that issue, so. I'm sorry,
I
go
know
ahead.
she said that, we don't think because it's public use, because we get government funding, but we do have some control and authority over the schools, correct? Since that are in there.
some of the schools that
He
use the
leases
airport aren't
space to them,
here.
Correct? Right? Isn't it up to
Well, that
him,
doesn't-
or
yeah.
do they?
But the majority of them come from elsewhere. They come from Embry-Riddle and,
Right, but I'm saying Roy controls the overall, how many schools come into the area?
no.
He controls time. When they can
It's a
use it.
federally funded airport, and anybody who wants to train there can train there.
I think the one issue that you're referring to is whether or not they have a presence, like Phoenix East, for
Right.
instance. They have a presence at the airport, they rent space. But a lot of the flight schools that come in don't necessarily have space at the airport, but it doesn't give us the right to restrict their use of the airport or the airspace. That's regulated by FAA. So I think what Chair Hansen is saying is that you have a lot of flight schools that are outside of our community that use our airport because of, maybe it's convenience, maybe it's because it isn't as congested as, say, a Daytona Beach or New Smyrna, where they have more access, availability, less conflicts with other flights, other airplanes.
And Roy has given us a report years ago, but it's not just us. Every airport in the vicinity is being used by these schools. So it's their privilege because it's a federally funded aviation facility.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
just one small point. We're still here, this group right here. And if it's a significant issue that comes forward that can't be handled by the staff or Roy, they can bring it to us.
They can bring it to us, yeah.
And that was
Andy?
a suggestion that I floated, was that maybe on a quarterly basis at the evening meeting, we just have an airport update, an opportunity for the public to come to the evening meeting, and Roy has the floor to go through the different projects, to review complaints or other issues that have popped up, and just give the public an update from the director on how things are going. That provides, in my mind, the public an opportunity for input in an open setting, and we get kind of that periodic.
Yeah, they've sort of gotten organized, the homeowners, with one spokesman, it seems to be,
Gina's here today.
sending us, is that you?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean,
so-
and that's like a good, what Andy was saying, because I would like to see from Roy, because we said, well, it's an airspace that's used by all these schools, but I would imagine that he is able to identify and give us how many of them take off, are based out of there that take off versus how many are coming in from other areas, so we can get an idea of is it more out of the other areas that make the noise that we can't control, or is it the ones that are there? I know there's that noise abatement agreement. They say it's, it's been said, it's back and forth, it's voluntary. When you read it, it doesn't seem voluntary. That's being
But it is,
violated. It is voluntary. So it's just we need to kind of give an opportunity, because there's so many other projects coming in. The city of Palm Coast has earmarked over in that area for housing, that, I don't think that the noise issue is going away, and I don't know what the right solution is, but if there's a touch base with us that we could talk about it, or,
Now, I would think,
council.
I kind of agree with Commissioner Dance. I think that would be an addition, but I don't think monthly, maybe every other month.
I didn't
or-
say monthly, quarterly.
He said
Quarterly?
Yeah.
Okay, quarterly, I think that would work.
At
I
least
think
it's
that
something
would-
to try, because
Yeah.
we're just trying to come up with some, like you said, we've gone
certainly.
down the path before the committee with issues. This just seems like another, and Roy
Well, that'd be
loves
a
to
chance
talk
to get
about
it
the
out.
airport and show
Right.
what's going on,
Right
and
zone. You know, it's a little different than some of the other things.
Yeah. Ms. Petito, can we do that
Yes, sir. I wrote it down, so I can.
quarterly?
Absolutely.
And what was your other question? What was the other?
Oh, the same thing
economic
with the
development.
economic, wasn't sure how the
I would
council
defer
would
to
weigh.
Commissioner O'Brien on that,
So,
since he,
if there was
since he
anything we wanted
can't,
to
since
do
he
for
killed
that.
the other one.
I don't know, I guess I'm new here, but if we were ever gonna look at doing like overlay districting or, what kind of incentives we could have that are out on the table for them to know, while they're looking in the area.
I mean, the question is, we have a 35-page document, which is rules of procedures. We're supposed to be discussing that. I mean, if the question is about whether we should have an economic advisory council, today, the answer is no. If we want to put that on the agenda and discuss it, down the line, then do that. But in terms of, does it belong in this document right now, the question's, in my mind, is no. So I guess I don't.
Well, your question was, why'd we cancel it, right? I mean, why are they not there? Okay. Well, we solved the aviation one, so. Okay, Mr. O'Brien doesn't want to discuss that, so we will move on.
Well, while we're on it, I mean, I really don't feel comfortable discussing any of this document because I really haven't had a chance to study it or understand it. And so, I mean, we can go through it, but I'm not going to be much help on it today.
I've got a couple if you,
Yeah, go ahead.
if you want to take a look at these. I've got some printouts that, and these are mainly on code of conduct. So I know that was one of the parts that wasn't part of this. So I took the liberty of printing some of these. These are examples, mainly from NACO and from FAC, so two organizations that we belong to. And this last one is some from St. Johns County rules and policies on some things that I didn't know that we touched on a lot in there. And again, like Commissioner O'Brien says, I think let's throw some things out here that maybe we want to mark this up and come back, submit questions and then come back and look at this in a month again. Because I've got questions, not just on the code of conduct, but on some of the things in here, like on the agenda. And and this is on page 8. And it says, the chair, any commissioner or county administrator may schedule an item for a time certain that Chair, commissioner, or county administrator may request an item be scheduled for a time certain on the agenda. Past experience, due to the amount of time that agenda items require for review, it's been my past practice that items don't go through unless they reach a consensus. Not just any commissioner can put an item on the agenda because it could be any single issue topic that is pulling time from staff that has no possibility of gaining traction. Those should be brought up under board member comments and a consensus asked. Do we want to spend time on this? Is there support for moving this forward? So I think something like that would help, and so we're not just wasting a lot of staff time on dead-end issues.
No, I agree. The way I read that is that any single commissioner could put something on the agenda.
Right,
Right, and I don't like that.
right.
Yeah.
So that's something I think that we could hash again. It gives people, think about it, and we'll maybe come up with some language that addresses that. We've had, I've got lots of, I didn't put them in writing. I've got this marked up in all kinds of, I want to talk about the quorum for commissioners calling in. I'm not a fan of calling in. Technology has gotten better, but my instances with calling in and having votes over phone is it's due to delays and different things. It really hinders the progress or the flow of the meetings. And we do talk a little bit about calling in, but I don't know if this has been updated. This was before COVID, so we might be able to update this with knowing how we progressed through COVID and with teleconferences and whatnot.
Where was that? I don't remember reading that.
It talks about quorum on page 10, and through that, required attendance for officials in those two areas right there. I think that there's room in there for that to be updated based on what we experienced through COVID. If we can't meet again in person and just have to do Zoom, there should be something that I think maybe acknowledges that.
Yeah, no big deal. Just last Thursday, we couldn't have a quorum for a Northeast Florida Regional Council because there were 11 members in present, and there were about 10 by Zoom, and we couldn't do any official votes.
Right, but that's a
'Cause that-
little
that's the-
different
that's-
too, because you're pulling members from all over the
I know,
Northeast
but
Florida.
I think the state is kind of going back from where you could easily use the Zoom for your voting and all that. I think so you're right, it's time to look at that. I think there's recent legislation along those lines.
And there's a section on page 13 about newly elected commissioners. I think Commissioner Pennington may want to add some specifics on how her onboarding went. But I think there's room in there for clarification on how
Your
quickly we
page
get.
numbers are different than,
Yeah,
Is
what
it?
page?
Maybe I'm looking at an old one. It's under General Provisions, Section 3,
14.
Page 14.
page 14 then. Sorry, I'm looking at one I think that was printed before Al's comments were on there.
Yeah, that's probably.
Huh? Right. So just think about how, I think it's important, and I had this discussion with Planning Board too, about we nominate and have a new Planning Board member, and then immediately they're asked to sit at the next Planning Board and weigh in on these important topics without getting a lot of training. But I think there might be, in this, right, it says the swearing-in ceremony for newly elected commissioners, county administrator shall provide an orientation program. And I'm wondering if we don't set maybe some dates or at least formalize that a little bit more, because I think it's important to get commissioners up to speed as quickly as possible.
well,
But you can
I'd have
weigh
to
in
ask,
as the.
I'd have to,
Well,
I think
I
it's
will
like a
say
fire hose, right?
I
mean,
had like 3 or 4 weeks before the actual swearing in. I think it would have been maybe beneficial to start the meetings about, some of them would have been beneficial, especially the ones that had things coming up on the first agendas. But, you know, I'm still working through those meetings. I'm still having meetings with department heads. It is a lot.
But I just quickly say on that, with Al sitting there, we don't have any choice. If you get elected, you take office on a definite date. You
yeah.
can't delay that.
can't delay that.
That cannot be delayed, and you got to start voting at that point, whether you're up to speed or not.
And then on Exhibit C, which is maybe, I have 23, it could be 24 in your packet, but there's advisory boards, committees, councils, we touched on this. I would just want to know which ones are statutorily required. So if we can identify those, if it's not clear, maybe it's clear as under each of the ones. But in that summary, it didn't say which ones were statutorily required. I guess it does on, like Tourist Development Council, the page where it does reference a Florida statute where that's required. Maybe I just didn't read far enough in. But I'm sure I'll pick out some more. Those were just the first flush of those. And then with the handouts was just some other points that I thought we could clarify. You know, our two main organizations, FAC and NACO, both have code of conducts, and I think we can lean on them to also incorporate those, or at least reference those as ideals that we look to hold up.
Well, would you have tried to enforce these in a previous regime?
No, code of conduct is, you're going to have to leave, I think what you do is you establish your basis, and these are things that we strive to achieve, and if you, at least at that point, if a commissioner is not following those are things that can be brought up at a meeting if it's flagrant enough. I mean, I think, you know, in most instances, it's, you know, we haven't had a lot of issues like that, but this is just stating from, a lot of it is building trust with the community. If we publicly state these within our rules of procedure, that this is our expectation, this is the ideals that we want to uphold, it's building trust with the community that their elected officials are going to do their best to uphold these.
I don't know why anybody would have a problem with a code of conduct.
No, I don't have a problem with it, but every one of, like, I will not engage in, all four of those things were engaged in the last few years.
I think Mr. Hadid had made reference to me on Volusia County, and I just didn't research Volusia County, but Volusia County had something that he recommended that we look at.
Even Palm Coast reads something at the beginning of their meetings along those lines. Talking, if you read the first page of their agenda, there's quite a bit there.
And one of them, though, is from NACO in regards to people that address them at their meetings. So it's kind of like rules for public comment as well. So that might be something that since this is about board procedures and all about our meeting procedures, that we incorporate that into our rules and procedures as well. I don't want this to get lengthy. I think it's as long as it is, the document in and of itself, because we've added all the different committees and stuff. But I think in a month, if we have time to review all this stuff and submit questions to Ms. Petito and Mr. Deed and start pulling together a document to review again in a month, that would be great.
Well, I for one will read over this and give you
I think
what I
it's
think.
just
but,
verbiage, Mike.
I think it might be a good idea to have something in there. Okay,
That's all.
to be considered, okay. Any other comments about this?
I appreciate the work. I just, you know, with given the timeframe, just really feel like need more time to go through it and really think through it and be better prepared next time.
Should we send comments to Mr. Hadid?
You can send them to both.
Okay.
It's fine.
Do we want to set a deadline?
Do this next month? Bring it back?
You have
think
to give
that's
me a
time.
deadline so I can
I think that's,
procrastinate.
Let's
to the last
include it
day
on-
and then do it.
oh, well, I would, so that they have time to put them together, get them within the next couple weeks, and then they will have time to formalize it for the agenda. So
If we all do
the
our,
comment period opens now.
if we all do, if the five of us do our homework and we include this in an already scheduled workshop that's coming up, we should be able to knock this out.
There you go.
So let's do that.
Maximize our time.
So like, we're having a workshop on the 20th, you talking about something like that?
April
Yeah.
3rd, we
Oh,
have,
April the
April 3rd, we have one already tentatively scheduled to talk about the dune easement.
Yeah.
We can add it there.
Okay? April 3rd, is that okay with everybody?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
We'll put it back on April 3rd, and I enjoin my fellow commissioners to please read this and submit comments to Heidi and Al. That'd be good.
Fair.
Any other comments on that? If not, I'll open it up to public comment. Anybody in the public wish to comment? If so, please approach the podium, state your name, and address the chair.
Hi, everybody. Hi, Commissioners. Hi, Heidi. My name is Gina Weiss, and I'm the advocate for the Quail Hollow. I'm the chosen one. Community on airport noise traffic. I'm here because we need to reestablish an airport advisory committee. First of all, Phoenix East is located right on the airport grounds. So with my little radar screen, I could actually see who is non-compliant, who's flying 200 to 300 feet above our homes, putting us in danger, okay? There is no reason why that particular flight school tail number, you cannot call up Phoenix East. I get better results, actually, from speaking to Raj at Phoenix East and Ivan at Embry-Riddle than I do from Roy Ziga. Okay? People don't need to call up the airports to make a complaint to hear about the history of the airport. I'm tired of this chicken and egg, which came first thing. I mean, that's over with. That's not going to, no pun intended, to fly anymore. Jerry Cameron, he initially, he disbanded the Airport Advisory Committee at a meeting a couple of years back because he said that they had no power in the way it was set up. However, he wanted another Airport Advisory Committee reestablished. Now, when Heidi Petito came in, she did establish a committee. We had a Zoom meeting. It was effective, but I didn't know it was a temporary committee. I thought that that was the committee. So being that we have a lot of traffic now and much more noise, I asked Heidi if we could meet with the committee, and that's how I found out that it was temporary. Heidi said that we need more transparency with the community and better ways to communicate, develop new ways, she just said it today, to engage with the community rather than the old ways, because the old ways aren't working. So what a better way than to reestablish the Airport Advisory Committee, okay? So the mission would be to act as a direct channel of communication in order to increase county responsiveness to community complaints. We need this for transparency. We need this for the safety and well-being of the residents in our community, for us taxpayers and citizens. I see in the booklet here that was handed out by Mr. Salinas that we do have committees, advisory committees. We have affordable housing committees. You know, you could just take a look at it yourself. Land acquisition committees. We do need an airport advisory committee. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Chair,
Yes.
I just wanted to, is it all right if can I ask? Ms. Rice
Yes,
a question?
please.
Thank you for, hi, thank you for coming in today. Can you, is there a group that you're part of, you know, with Quail Hollow, just so I can understand? But just talk in the mic, sorry, because otherwise the clerk doesn't get it.
Yes, it's the residents in the community.
Okay,
That's our group.
so is there?
And they work during the day. I mean, you know, it's a blue-collar community. We have, you know, children that go to school, and we do have, you know, planes, I understand what Heidi's saying, that do come in because of the funding from other airports. I could actually locate those planes.
This group do they have regular meetings? Is it some sort of a neighborhood watch or something like that, where you have a communication tool?
It's a neighborhood watch. We speak amongst ourselves.
Okay, got it. Okay, thank you.
Anybody else wish to speak? Sure. We'll close public speaking at this point. Any other things we need to deal with, commissioners? Anything else? If not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Moved and seconded, we're adjourned.